In 1999, Bill Clinton became the first president to declare June as Gay Pride Month.
I did have sexual relations with that man.
Ever since then, companies have been spending June creating and selling rainbow shit in order to get good PR with the LGBT community. But every other month of the year, companies are aiming their advertising campaigns at the most oppressed minority of all: gamers. You have your typical gaming consoles, gaming PCs, gaming monitors, and gaming headsets. But we even have gamer shirts, gamer hats, gamer chairs, gamer grip, and even gamer fuel, more commonly known as G Fuel. You've probably heard of G Fuel from half of the gaming channels on YouTube being sponsored by the brand, acting as the internet equivalent of a door-to-door salesman. For the longest time, G Fuel has been advertised as the energy drink for gamers. It is seen as the all-encompassing gamer beverage to help your all-night grind out of your bottom-tier rank when your cocaine habit just isn't cutting it. G Fuel itself has tons of flavors like Tropical Rain, Blue Ice, Raging Gummy Fish, Snow Cone, French Vanilla, Hype Sauce, what the fuck, and Pink Drip. Some video game companies even had their own flavors made, like Wumpa Fruit, Sonic Peach Rings, Scorpion Sting, Ice Shatters, Sour and Spicy Demonade, and Nemesis Tea flavor. Why would I eat that? And then there's the sponsored influencer flavors. PewDiePie, Logic, Romanette Wood, and KSI all have their own flavors, along with the dozen-plus flavors that FaZe Clan has for some reason. These sponsors always tell us about the performance-enhancing capabilities of G Fuel. But I don't just want to know if G Fuel is applicable as a gaming stimulator. I want to know the scientific limits of what G Fuel can provide to the human body. I want to know if we can optimize in-game time and use G Fuel as a cooking ingredient. I'm not the first person to test this idea, and G Fuel themselves have made cooking with G Fuel style videos, but those feature Andy Milonakis, which pretty much disqualifies it from being considered anything of quality. One thing I want to talk about before we actually start eating this stuff is, what exactly is G Fuel? Aside from the gamer energy drink thing, more specific than that. Well, as told in this age-old G Fuel YouTube video, it's a powdered energy drink that you mix with water and is based on the idea of being entirely free of sugar. And yeah, that's completely true. You can look at the nutritional facts for any G Fuel flavor on their website and see that they all feature 0 sugar. However, I'm a bit suspicious of these nutrition labels because every label, no matter the flavor, has the exact same amounts, and there is just no way that this is the case. The stimulant G Fuel uses instead comes from everyone's favorite legal drug, caffeine. Each serving equates to roughly 140 milligrams of caffeine, which, according to my first page Google search, is a safe amount. You could chug down about 2 or 3 bottles of G Fuel before you start to be at risk for a gamer overdose. There is one thing that G Fuel appears to have a lot of though, and that's vitamin B and vitamin C, with over 100% of your daily intake in one serving. Now, I'm not a geologist, but I'm fairly certain that having too much daily vitamin intake can be pretty harmful to your health. So that may be one reason to not overdo it with G Fuel. With that out of the way, I think it's time to taste test my first serving of G Fuel. Okay, so I just got my G Fuel packets in the mail. I didn't get a whole tub of G Fuel because I thought that would be way too much, and I also wanted to try a bunch of different flavors out. Instead, I just got these individual packet sizes. They're 1 serving each, so they're like one-time use. I got 3 different flavors in total. I got Rainbow Sherbet, there's Tropical Rain, and then the last one I got was the PewDiePie flavor. It's supposed to be Lingonberry, but it kind of smells like cherry. I got a couple different ones because I think some of them might taste kind of bad and I don't want them to ruin the whole thing. Some of them might be good, some of them might be bad, some of them might be trash, I don't know. We could try different things with different foods. I just wanted to see what they're all like. The first thing I did was just try out some basic G Fuel on its own with just water. I started with the PewDiePie flavor, and wow, do I ever make the G Fuel process look way more precise than it needs to be. It's just 1 cup of water plus 1 pack of G Fuel mixed together. So I just mixed up the PewDiePie flavor, and it's really red. It's much more red than I thought it would be. And another thing I noticed is that it has a really strong smell to it, which I wasn't really expecting. It definitely still has that cherry smell I was getting from before. So this is my first time ever trying G Fuel, and I have no idea what I'm going to expect. It's a bit weird tasting. The water is like kind of thick because of the powder. It's almost like chalky, if that makes any sense. It's also not nearly as flavorful as I thought it would be based off the smell. It's not bad at all, but it's certainly not amazing like I hoped it would be. I'm just really hoping that this translates a lot better into the food. The first thing I wanted to make with G Fuel was waffles. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to Binging with Babish, where today we are going to be making waffles, an all-time American classic. Now, the first thing we need to do when making our waffles is to make our own waffle maker. Now that we've got our own waffle maker built from scratch, we can finally get down to the food. First things first, we need half a cup of all-purpose flour followed by 1 cup of cold milk. I use 2%, but you can use whatever is available to you. We continue this recipe with 1 cracked egg. Oh, make sure to crack it all the way. There you go. We then need to add a pinch of sugar and a small sprinkling of salt to the mixture. We will then whisk to combine until the entire mixture is homogeneous and no streaks of egg nor clumps of flour are visible. Last but not least, we add the most important ingredient, our packet of G Fuel. In this case, I will be using Tropical Rain, but any flavor is acceptable. Pour it in and then whisk to combine once more. Now that our waffle batter is complete, we can move on to the baking. Plug in your waffle maker and keep it on for about 5 minutes so that it can heat up. In the meantime, spread on a layer of nonstick oil so that we can pry our waffle out later down the line, and then pour in the batter so that it fills in every space of the waffle maker. Close the lid and keep it in there for about 10 to 15 minutes or until fully cooked. And there you have it, a perfectly well done G Fuel waffle. So the G Fuel waffles are finally done, and they look kind of weird. I don't know if you can see this too well, but they have this really weird light blue tinge to them. One thing I noted while making these is that the smell is really weird and kind of bad. I can't quite put my finger on it, but adding the G Fuel to the batter definitely did something with the smell and also its ability to cook. You can see on this side that it was able to cook pretty well, but then on this other side, it really just couldn't do the job. When I tear it open, I can at least see that it's cooked all the way through, so I'm not gonna get food poisoning or anything from eating this. So I guess it's time for the taste test. Oh. That is not good. That tastes like shit. It's kind of fruity, but it doesn't go with the waffles at all. It's so bad. I don't know what flavor Tropical Rain is trying to emulate. I think it's something fruity. I'm wondering if the flavor itself is just bad or if it's just the mixture of putting it in the waffle just makes it taste absolutely horrible. So that was not really much of a success, so it's time we moved on to cook plan number 2, G Fuel rice. I was actually originally planning on making G Fuel risotto, but I don't want to waste too much butter on this, and I am not going to be shredding pecorino into there. That shit is not worth this. My recipe for this is super basic. First, I have the G Fuel mixture in 1 cup of water. This time I'm using rainbow sherbet. Then I get a tablespoon of butter into my wok, warm that up, and then pour in 1 cup of rice. This recipe is 1 part rice and 1 part liquid. Pour in the cup of G Fuel and wait until the rice absorbs all the water from the pan. This should only take about 5 to 8 minutes. I put in 1 extra scoop of butter because I still thought I was making risotto at this point, but it doesn't really matter. Then scoop it out onto a plate and there is my monstrosity. Okay, I just finished making the G Fuel rice and look at this, oh my God. It looks a lot more red on camera than it does in real life. In real life, it looks a lot more pinkish. It's the red G Fuel mixed in with the white rice that comes out with this color. One thing I also want to note is the smell again. The waffles had like a slight smell of something I couldn't quite explain, but this has it way worse. When I was cooking it in the pan, there was all this vapor coming off of it, and that vapor smelled atrocious. That smell is definitely still here, but it's not nearly as prevalent because it's not cooking right now. I'm disappointed with how much of this I made because I know for a fact that I'm only gonna have 1 forkful of this entire cup of rice, and then I'm probably gonna be done with it. I honestly just wanna get this over with so badly. I also got some water in case I wanna wash out my mouth at all. Okay, this is it. Oh, that is horrible. That is horrible. The sweetness of the G Fuel and the starchiness of the rice just clash so much. And it's so hard to describe, but it tastes so bad. Everything about this is just completely awful. The color, the taste, the smell, it's not edible. It never will be edible. I'm glad I didn't waste too much of this. There's just nothing else to say. It's just fucking awful. The last thing I wanted to make was G Fuel ice cream. This one I'm suspecting should be good since we're taking G Fuel, which is typically made up of sweet flavors, and mixing it in with ice cream, which pretty much always has sweet flavors. I'm using the recipe from Adam Ragusi on YouTube. He actually has 2 recipes for homemade ice cream on his channel, the so-called 2 bowls method and the spoon method. The 2 bowls method requires you to have a hand mixer, which I do not have, which is weird because I do have a $300 stand mixer, but that doesn't work for this. I am therefore forced to use the spoon method, which I will explain in a minute. This needs half a cup of sugar, 1 cup of cream, and half a cup of milk along with our G Fuel. I'm using the rainbow sherbet G Fuel again because I imagine that would make this taste like sherbet ice cream. I'm going to be using 2 packs of G Fuel for this since this recipe is using 1.5 cups of liquid rather than just 1 cup, and I feel it's better to overdo the G Fuel flavor rather than underdo it. This needs to be all mixed together, and when that's done, I need to put it into the freezer where you can actually see I already own the exact flavor of ice cream that I'm trying to emulate. By the way, do you like what I did with my G Fuel sticker? This then leads into the long part of the recipe, which is that I need to take it out of the freezer every 30 minutes and stir it. The idea here is that I break up all the little ice particles that have been forming over the past while. If I just put it in there and never took it out, it would just become a giant G Fuel ice cube. Instead, the constant breaking up of the ice particles causes it to have a texture that is just like ice cream. The first time I took it out of the freezer, it looks like some sort of strawberry yogurt. I need to scrape the frozen stuff off the side of the bowl and then mix everything together before putting it back into the freezer. The second time I took it out, it looks like some sort of Pepto-Bismol concoction. Same mixing procedure, scrape off the sides and break up any larger ice chunks before throwing it back into the freezer. The third time out, and it's finally starting to look like some actual ice cream. Melted ice cream, but still ice cream. This means we're getting pretty close to the final product. The fourth time out, and that looks just about right. This just needs 1 more mixing, and then the final step is to leave it in the freezer for a whole 24 hours to let it fully freeze up. After 24 hours, it's fully hardened, except that it's too hard. I can't really get anything out with my ice cream scooper. I'm forced to leave it out on the counter for 5 to 10 minutes to let it soften up a bit before I can actually get a reasonable amount into a bowl. The G Fuel ice cream is finally complete, and this actually doesn't look too bad. It's still got that like pink Pepto-Bismol type of color to it, kind of similar to what the rice had. It's actually pretty good, honestly. The other stuff was either just horrible tasting or basically completely inedible, but this is actually not bad. It's like nice and sweet. I can definitely like taste the G Fuel in there, yet at the same time it still lost a lot of the sweetness it had from the G Fuel. I was honestly worried it would taste too sweet because the proportion of liquid to G Fuel was kind of out of sync. I only had about 1.5 cups of liquid with the cream and the milk, and I had 2 packets of G Fuel. One thing I also have to note about this is it's actually insanely creamy. Like it's a really good texture. It's like literal melt in your mouth type shit. So far, this is definitely the most I've eaten out of any of the G Fuel food because it's actually good. This is something I could honestly see myself actually finishing. I probably will finish the whole thing that I made. It's not perfect. I think other regular ice cream is still much better, but this is definitely doable. This is definitely something you could make and you could enjoy. This was the first and only legitimate success. I plan on using the rest of my G Fuel to make more ice cream, but honestly, I think it's fair to call this experiment a bust. I was imagining the waffles would be alright, but they just didn't mix well at all for some reason. I don't have the culinary prowess to explain why this happened, but it just sucked. It wasn't completely inedible, but honestly, I would never see myself actually finishing one of those waffles. On the other hand, I would argue that the rice was completely inedible. I couldn't even swallow a single bite of that before spitting it out. The moment it landed on my tongue, my body just knew that there was something wrong and responded accordingly. The ice cream, like I said, was the only real success here. It had a nice creamy texture and the flavor was pretty good. In fact, the texture was actually better than the test bench ice cream I made before trying it with the G Fuel. But that was probably due to a better freezing procedure rather than anything to do with the G Fuel itself. Although, I would still say that the taste of standard store-bought ice cream is still superior. I would say not even the standard G Fuel is really all that good. I said before that it makes the water feel really thick and chalky, and I forgot to mention that the powder constantly settles to the bottom of the cup. You have to shake it up every couple of minutes, otherwise you'll be left with some thick G Fuel sand on your last sip. I was really hoping that we would reinvent the food world as we know it with some gamer ingenuity. AB pediatricians would have added G Fuel as the 5th and most important food group. Maybe it would get taught to school children. I don't know, but unfortunately it seems like that'll never really happen. But this is the cost of science. It's one small step for a gamer and one large leap for gamer kind. Just remember to stay in school, don't do drugs, and make sure to eat your non-G Fuel infused veggies.